Hey, Talofa. Let's with Dr. John Peterson here, TE2 Art Sports Cards. Coming at you live and direct from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Back at the card table, folks. It is Monday, and I just wrapped up the first video for the week, Modest Monday Mail Day. Check that out if you haven't had a chance to do that already. This will be coming out a little bit later this afternoon, and I've titled this one, Pricing for a Card Show. Check it out.
TE2 Edge Sports Cards. Get at it.
All right, let's get into it here, folks. So, oh boy, let's go back a few years. When I first started this as a business back in late 21, early 22, one of the toughest things that I experienced initially was figuring out how to price cards. Especially for eBay, live shows, even Instagram. So I think what it's important for us to focus on here is the process. So let's go from one step to the next step to the next step and see how this goes. First off, you have to know what you paid for the card. All right. You have to know what the, how would I put it? What the value of the card was when you bought it and what percentage you bought it at. That's critical. If you don't know what you paid for it and you're not keeping track of that, you're effed. That's all I'm going to say is you're going to be in trouble. You got to keep track of what you're paying for stuff. And I don't care if it's boxes, wax, rack packs, singles, breaks, you name it. If you're not keeping track of what's going on in terms of the money and you're doing this as a business, you ain't going to be in business very long, baby. So make sure you're doing that. Let me give you an example. So this is a Jordan, as you all know. This is the 95 Skybox Premium, larger than life. It's a foil card. Beautiful, beautiful card. Probably a top 10 Jordan card for me. It's not a super high hierarchy card, probably third tier, according to Cajun Cardboard, but really tough to find in a high grade. So this card I picked up off of eBay. It was an auction, and I was the only bidder. I think he had it listed at $300. Typically, this card goes for about $250 in an 8. In an SGC slab, but I paid a little more. And part of the reason why I paid a little more is the chipping on the right side of this card and sometimes on the left is typically problematic. And I think I did a mail day of this card recently, so you've had a chance to kind of hear that. I'm not going to go over all that again. But I paid $300 for it. If you have an eBay store and you have not yet tried to get sales tax exempt status for your business, I highly, highly recommend you try doing that. Sales tax can be a killer. And one of the things about sales tax is that they can't double whammy. So when I sell this card, I'm going to collect sales tax from the buyer, or eBay will collect that from the buyer. But they can't also charge me sales tax for purchasing it. You can't usually do sales tax twice. So as a business owner, I submitted an ST3 form to eBay. This is over a year ago. Should have done it right away. And didn't have to pay any sales tax. So you only pay a small fee to purchase the card. So basically you're looking at about $304 to buy this card. Now, because this was an eBay purchase, I'm not going to have a huge margin on this card. It's just not going to happen. I put it at $360. I bought it at $300. One of the reasons why I put it at $360 is because I think the eye appeal of this card is about as good as any 8, whether it's BGS, PSA, SGC, you're going to see on eBay. So that's one thing to consider. A second thing to consider is you got to make a little money on it, right? So if I sell this card for $360 on eBay at 87%, I'm basically going to break even. I might make a small profit of 10, $15, but pretty marginal. On the other hand, at the show, point number 3 is you don't want to set the price of this so high and so far above the value and or the comps, the average comps, that people just look at it and scoff and not even make an offer. So what I do is I like to try and keep it at, I don't know, depending on the card and depending on the day, depending on the show, depending on the player. If it's Jordan, it's a little higher. If it's Kobe, it's not quite as high as Jordan, but higher. Ditto for LeBron. If it's a higher grade, and if it's a low pop count like this card is, a lower pop count like this card is, I'll put it at 105, 110, sometimes 115% of comps are value, and rarely at 120%. All right, so this card's probably right around that 110%, 115%, and the reason being is the eye appeal. Now, will I get 360 for this at the show? Probably not. But hopefully someone will be interested enough in this card that they'll consider making an offer. And if somebody offers me 340, I'd probably take it. $40 isn't a huge flip, but this is a great card. The eye appeal, like I said, is fantastic. I think it very well could be cracked and subbed and potentially get a 9 and a 9. This is like an $800-900 card. And so if I don't sell it this weekend, I just might do that. Next card is an interesting one. Another Jordan. This is the 95 Skybox Premium. So these two cards come from the same set, same product. 95 Skybox Premium. This is Series 1. These are the blue boxes. This is Series 2, the red boxes. This is quite possibly my top 1 or 2 favorite Jordan cards of all time that I've owned. Just love this card. This card was running in an 8, around that $750 to $850 range. Oh boy, probably about 4 to 6 weeks ago. I'd picked this up back in Christmas time last year, raw, and sent it in, got it graded, and came back as an 8. Similar to the larger than life, this card has great eye appeal because the edges on this card are amazing, comparatively speaking, to other 8s. This was also graded about 2-3 months ago, so it's in the new slab. You can see it's got the 9-digit cert. That's really important, folks. If you don't know about that, you gotta be aware. Here's a card that's got a 4-digit PSA cert. The 4-digit PSA certs were graded according to a standard for PSA that was a little bit less rigid and strict. This comes from the new grading scale. This card does. So I think this card's worth more than what your typical PSA 8 is going to be worth in an 8-digit cert slab. And the eye appeal on this card indicates as such. Now, most of the comps for this card are right around $1,000 to $1,100. Likelihood that I get $1,500 for this, pretty low. Just not likely to happen. But I would sell it. I'm not going to sell it for less than $1,300. I'll hang on to it for that because I know that the value of this card. This is a tier 2 Jordan card according to Cajun Cardboard. He's got what the 4 tiers or 5 tiers. And the poster in the back behind me. This is solidly a tier 2 card. In a 10, this is like a $35,000 card. And in a 9, this is about a $3,500-4,000 card, which I actually think is undervalued. So I priced this a little bit higher. I did price it in a way that I can get a little bit of a margin on it. And one of the things that I do is I like to mark every once in a while, not every show, but every once in a while. I'll mark the card with a plus or a minus. And the plus means that I've got a little room, right? It's just a reminder to me because there's a lot of cards that I sell. Got a little room to move on this. And a minus would be, no, I don't really have much room. It's pretty much the sticker, 5%, maybe 10% under the sticker. But this one here has got a little bit of room on it, right? But not a ton because it's a low pop count card, and the eye appeal of this card is fantastic. Typically, people think about eye appeal as vintage. Well, this card is now 30 years old. So in a way, it's kind of vintage. even though it's not vintage, if you know what I mean. Oh, what else we got here? Let's take another look. Here we go. That's a good one. 98 Hoops Shoutouts Kobe. So this is not a really rare card. Pretty high pop count. Still a great card of Kobe. Early years Kobe, not a rookie, which is the second year. Hoops product, not a premium product. I'd say it's a lesser product compared to the Skybox Premium, 97 Metal Universe, Metal Championship, all that stuff. But still a nice card and still a nice product. So I picked this up. I bought this card in a lot in which I was able to get the lot, both the Kobe's and LeBrons, for about 85%. The 85% mark indicates about what I should have to sell this for. So if somebody comes by the table and says, well, I'll give you 90% of comps, I shouldn't take that, irrespective of what I've got it stickered at. Because a 5% return on investment for an 85% purchased card at 90% sold just doesn't make sense. It's not worth the time. I mean, it took me time to get it into the card, negotiate the cards, put them all in new sleeves, get the cards priced, researched, all that sort of thing. So for me, the minimum really is like 10%. Maybe on a big card, 7%. But for me, minimum, it's got to be a 10% margin. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Doesn't honor the time that I put into pricing it and researching it and picking it up. I'd prefer to be closer to 15 to 20% or above. But you're not always going to get that, especially if you're selling to a collector. Now, for me, I like to take care of my collectors. I like to take care of the people that buy from me. I have some Kobe collectors that come to my table on a regular basis at every show. And, so I'm going to probably give them closer to that 10% win for me rather than trying to get 20 or 30. If it's a repacker, on the other hand, they're selling at margins anywhere from 130 to 150% of comps. No shit. The repack business is big business. Just check out the stats on Courtyard IO. Check out the stats for Arena Club. And kudos to them, especially the repackers that are more local, doing their own thing. Not the graded grails from Sports Card Investor, although I do think that's cool that they're doing that. But yeah, so if a repacker is selling at 140 to 150%, even 130%, you can sell this card right at value, and they're still going to make their 30 to 50% margin. Whereas you're going to probably hit a 15% margin. So you have to price your cards with that in mind if you're selling to repackers and you're selling to collectors and you're selling to investors and you're selling to dealers. There's about 4 different factors that you have to consider. So for this card, I'm guessing this card, and I don't remember the exact value of this card right now, but I want to say the value probably is right around 140, 150. So if a collector comes to my table and says, would you take 140 or 150 for this? I would sell this card for 140 or 150 to a collector. If, however, a repacker put this along with a bunch of other cards as part of a bulk deal, I probably would be less inclined to sell it at that 140, 150 range. Probably be closer to 170, 175. And that might even be 105% of comps. But like I said, if they're selling at 130% to 150%, I don't need to give them an additional 5, 10% on top of that. I can take 20 and they can take 20. We'll split it down the middle, right? So if I got it for 85 and I'm selling it at 105, that's a 20% margin for me. And if he's selling it at 125%, that's a 20% margin for him. You also have to remember the repackers don't have to put as much work into it as you did. You had to source the card. You had to develop the relationship. You had to put the money and invest the money and take some of that risk on, right? Pretty much what they're doing. And this is not a negative on repackers, but let's be real. They buy the slabs. They put them into the envelopes. They run their checklist. And they mail the stuff out. I mean, it ain't that really hard, to be honest with you folks. So I just like to make sure that I'm protecting myself when I price my cards for a show with the flexibility of this little plus sign. So if a collector comes up and I see that plus sign, I know that I can work with them a little bit. Let's look at another one. There's a little lower end card, right? 2020 Mosaic Josh Silver, PSA 10. His stuff is down. In fact, it's a good time to buy Ja if you ask me. If you're a Ja person, if you believe in Ja, now is the best time to buy him because his stuff is as low as it's ever been. I don't think it'll go lower than this. And he's an electric player. He'll be better this year. Grizzlies will get things sorted out. Although the West is stacked. There's no doubt about that. So this is not a really super high-end product, 2020 Mosaic. I do love 2020 Mosaic. The silvers are hard to gem, and they're hard to pull, especially from like Megas, Blasters. So, I mean, you're not going to get a lot of silvers, and they're not going to be a lot of 10s. So this is a nice card, but the value's not there, right? So I priced this right at value, maybe even a little bit under value. If somebody comes up and offers me $20, I'm taking it. Somebody's going to be happy with Ja. Somebody who's a Ja collector to get this for $20, thrilled. Let's do, let's see here. Let's do something like this. Then we'll stop. I don't want this video to be too long. Okay, so this is 2022 Bowman University Best. This is Matas Bucelis. It's one guy that I'm prospecting for the NBA. Prospecting on. This is the best of 2022 Auto Gold Refractor. These are numbered to 50 in that Bowman product from 22. This is 5 of 50. This card is not worth $750. At least not according to the market. You will see some people selling this card for $750, $800, and $1,000 on eBay, but they're not going to get that much for that card. I'm not going to get $750 for this card unless I run into a really big-time Matas Bucelis collector who doesn't have it. That being said, this kid is a really dynamic young player. 6'11", can shoot, can jump, can dunk, can defend, runs the floor. Needs to get a little stronger, but I think he's going to be fantastic in the NBA. I think he's easily a 2010 guy in a year or two. Might not get there this year, but he's going to get close, especially given that DeRozan is gone and he's going to get some of DeRozan's minutes. But it is a gold refractor, and it is auto. Now, it's a sticker auto, and the auto's not too dynamic. What did I pick this card up for? Not $750. I think I might have paid $100 for this card back in the day. This is going like 2-3 years ago now. So I'm looking to make a decent margin on this card. However, the card is not super liquid right now. So if somebody were to come through and say, man, I'll give you $500 for this, I'd have to think long and hard about that, because if I'm in it for $120, that's a, $400 profit, $500 profit, somewhere in that range. I also have to protect myself on eBay, though, because if I sell this for really less than $750, I'm going to get hit with that 87% fee. So a repacker probably is not going to pick this card up, so I don't have to worry about them. But I do have to price this in such a way that if he does do really well this season and averages 18, 19, 20 points a game, 5, 6, 7, 8 rebounds a game, a couple of assists, his stuff's going to blow up. And his stuff did blow up this summer if you followed any of the Bucelis Prism stuff. So anyway, this is a unique card because it's a prospecting card. It's very different than this card. Different than pricing this, obviously. Ja's a known quantity. He's been in the league for a while. Different than this. Kobe's no longer with us, but his market is skyrocketing still. His stuff's still at about 45-degree angle vertical. Jordan, the GOAT, right? Tier 2 card. Got to price it in such a way that if I'm going to get a win on it, it's going to be a big win. And then the larger than life. This is the Jordan that I picked up off of eBay. So it's important to really, really think about how you want to price your cards. because you can get burned. I'm not going to lie. I use Card Ladder. I use a combination of value and or recent comps. I like Card Ladder because they have some of the auctions in there. One of the drawbacks of Card Ladder, though, is that they don't show the actual price paid on eBay best offers. So if there's an eBay sale at $500 and it was a best offer that sold for $400, you're not going to see that come up in Card Ladder. I don't use the 130 point a whole lot. Not been a huge fan of 130 point. Just too clunky of an interface, too slow. But I know some people love 130 points. So like if 130 points your thing, go for it. It's free too. It doesn't cost anything. Card Ladder costs a little bit, $150 a year. I love Card Ladder. eBay comps, of course. You can use the eBay comps, solds and completeds. That's good. I like to use Card Ladder to determine or derive the value. And then I put that overlay onto eBay, not only in terms of solds and completeds, but also what other cards are in the market of that same card and what are they selling for? What are they listed for? So if this card is listed for, let's go back. I wasn't planning to go back to this, but I think it's important because a lot of people really struggle with pricing. So hopefully this is helpful for folks. You're going to see this card on eBay, right? I can't put it at, $20, $30, $40 more than the highest listed price of this card on eBay. It's just pure foolishness, right? It's got to be somewhere at or below the top, preferably below, like somewhere in that middle range is what I'd like to do. This card, on the other hand, there is no PSA 8 currently for sale on eBay. This is a tough card to find in an 8, and even tougher in a 9, and damn near impossible in a 10. You're paying through the nose to get a 10. So I feel like I can put a little bit of higher price on this. It's harder to find. There's I think there's a BGS 8.5 out there that doesn't even look as nice as this one. Some dude from Minneapolis is asking $3,500 for it. Well, power to him. You ain't gonna get $3,500 for that card. I'd much rather buy this card at $1,500, less than half the cost, and a same condition or better condition card. But because there are none of these for sale on eBay, I can increase the price and I can justify that to the buyer and say, well, if you don't want to pay $1,400 or $1,300 for it, then maybe you can find it somewhere else at this show or on eBay. And typically they don't have a response for that because they can't find it. That's why it's really important to have some cards in your inventory that are hard to source and low pop, because it gives you some leverage. Other cards, you don't need much leverage because they're commodity cards. I mean, they're cards you're just going to move, at or below recent comps or value. Sometimes I use comps. Sometimes I use value. In a rising market as a dealer, I think it makes more sense for me to use value, but you never know. So, all right. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I hear my wife is getting up, and y'all have a blessed day. Take care. Peace out. One love.